The palace stood tall and proud at the edge of the city. Its white walls gleamed under the morning sun, and its high towers seemed to touch the sky. People often passed by, staring in awe at the beauty of the place. Few ever entered, and even fewer knew the secrets hidden inside. Among the many who lived and worked there was Leo, a young royal guard. His uniform was neat, his boots polished, and his posture always straight. Leo had joined the royal guard 5 years ago. He had been trained to protect, to watch, and to serve. Every morning he woke up before sunrise. He polished his sword, cleaned his boots, and checked his uniform. Then he reported to the palace gates. His life was simple, but he loved it. He loved the order, the quiet strength, and the sense of purpose. The queen, Camilla, was a figure of elegance and grace. She moved through the halls with a calm presence, always smiling politely at the staff and visitors. Leo had never spoken to her directly. Guards were not allowed to talk to the queen unless absolutely necessary. But he watched her from a distance, noticing how carefully she walked, how she greeted everyone, and how she seemed to hold the weight of the entire kingdom on her shoulders. For many months, everything seemed normal. The palace ran smoothly. The staff worked hard. Visitors were welcomed, and royal events were held with grandeur. Leo carried out his duties without complaint. He stood in the halls, he walked the corridors, he kept watch in the gardens, and he observed everyone with careful eyes. One day, however, Leo noticed something strange. He was walking past the queen's private office when he saw a small piece of paper slip under the door. Curious, he paused. Guards were not supposed to peek, but his instinct told him this was different. The paper seemed important, and it was unusual for it to be left there. He looked around. No one was near. He picked up the paper carefully. It was a receipt for a large sum of money. Leo's heart beat faster. The amount was far greater than anything he had ever seen in the palace accounts. He wondered why it was there. Who had sent it? And why was it hidden? Over the next few days, Leo noticed more signs. Papers were moved in secret. Staff whispered quietly in the corridors. Deliveries came and went at odd hours. The queen herself appeared busy, spending long hours in her private chambers. Leo began to feel uneasy. Something was not right. The palace, which had always seemed peaceful and secure, now felt like a place of secrets. Leo decided to pay closer attention. He began watching more carefully. He walked through the halls at different times, noticed who entered the queen's office, and recorded details in his notebook. He did not want to make any false accusations. He only wanted the truth. One evening, after the palace had grown quiet, Leo made his way to the queen's office again. The guards at the main doors were occupied, and no one seemed to notice him. He approached the desk. There was a faint smell of old paper and candle wax. The room was warm and quiet. Leo noticed a small drawer slightly open. Something inside called to him. He carefully pulled it open. Inside were documents stacked neatly. He looked closer and saw numbers, accounts, and letters. His eyes widened. The documents showed large amounts of money being moved from the royal treasury into unknown accounts. The amounts were enormous, far more than anyone would need. Leo felt a mix of fear and confusion. Could this really be true? Was the queen hiding this from everyone? He knew that making a mistake could ruin his life. Guards were not allowed to take documents from the queen's office, but his sense of duty to the kingdom was stronger than his fear. He decided to take pictures with his phone to study later. Over the next few days, Leo studied the documents in secret. He sat in the palace garden during breaks, looking at the numbers and writing notes. He tried to understand why the money had been moved. The more he read, the clearer it became. The funds had been redirected to personal accounts, away from schools, hospitals, and public services. Leo felt a deep sadness. The kingdom needed that money. People depended on it for their education, their health, and their daily life. Leo struggled with his thoughts. He had sworn to serve the queen and protect the palace, but he also had a duty to the kingdom and its people. The decision was not easy. Could he confront the queen? Could he tell anyone about this? Or should he stay silent and continue his duty? One night, as he walked through the palace halls, he found himself in the main courtyard. The moonlight reflected on the fountain, and the palace towers cast long shadows. Leo sat on the edge of the fountain and thought. He remembered why he had become a guard. It was not just for uniforms or swords or respect. It was to protect what was right. And right now he knew the kingdom needed the truth. Leo's mind was made up. He would not ignore what he had discovered, but he knew he could not do it alone. He needed someone who understood the law and could help him reveal the truth safely. The next morning, he quietly planned his next steps. He would find a trustworthy lawyer, someone who could guide him through the difficult path ahead. As he prepared, he continued his duties, acting as if nothing had changed. He stood in the grand halls, polished his boots, and saluted the queen when she passed. No one suspected the storm that was forming quietly within him. Leo's heart was calm, but his mind was sharp. He knew that revealing the truth would not be easy. There would be challenges, pressure, and perhaps danger. But he also knew that doing nothing was not an option. The palace continued its usual rhythm. Servants cleaned the rooms, chefs prepared meals, and courtiers walked in and out. Leo watched everything, noting small details that could help him later. He paid attention to who entered the queen's chambers, who handled the documents, and who seemed nervous. Every detail mattered. Leo also thought about the people outside the palace, the citizens who worked in the markets, the teachers who taught in small schools, the doctors who helped patients. He thought about how the missing money could have helped them. This strengthened his resolve. He was not just a guard for the palace. He was a guardian for the people. Days turned into weeks, and Leo's careful observation continued. He stayed vigilant, gathering information and preparing himself for the moment when he would act. He knew that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Leo felt fear, but he also felt purpose. Finally, he knew the time had come. He could no longer delay. The documents, the receipts, and the secret accounts had to be presented to someone who could help. He would step beyond the palace walls and find the guidance he needed. Leo walked to the edge of the palace gardens and looked at the city beyond. The lights twinkled, the streets were busy, and life went on. He knew that soon his actions could change many lives. But for now, he took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and prepared to take the first step toward truth and justice. The quiet duty of a royal guard had become something much greater. It was no longer just about standing watch. It was about protecting the kingdom itself, and Leo was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Leo left the palace quietly the next morning. The gates opened easily for him, and the guards nodded politely as he passed. No one suspected that his mind was filled with plans far beyond the usual duties of a royal guard. The documents he had discovered weighed heavily on him. He had spent nights thinking, imagining what would happen if the truth came out. He knew that revealing it could change the course of the kingdom. His first step was to find someone he could trust completely. He thought of many lawyers, but most were busy with wealthy clients or were known for seeking personal gain. Then he remembered a small law office on the edge of the city, run by a lawyer named Mara. She had a reputation for honesty and courage. People said she would fight for justice no matter the danger. Leo knew she was the right person. The office was modest, with simple wooden chairs and shelves full of books. Mara sat behind a desk, her glasses resting on her nose, reviewing papers. She looked up as Leo entered, his uniform still neat but his eyes showing tension and determination. "Good morning," Leo said softly. "I need your help. It is very serious and it must be handled carefully." Mara studied him silently for a moment. She noticed his straight posture, his calm tone, and the seriousness in his eyes. "Sit down," she said. "Tell me everything." Leo took a deep breath and explained what he had discovered in the Queen's office. He showed her the photographs of the documents, pointing out the large sums of money that had been moved to unknown accounts. Mara listened carefully, her brow furrowing as she examined each page. "This is extraordinary," she said finally. "If this is true, it is a serious misuse of funds. You have come to me at great personal risk." Leo nodded. "I cannot ignore this. I swore to protect the Queen, but I also swore to serve the kingdom. I cannot let the money disappear when people need it. Schools, hospitals, and citizens depend on this. I must do what is right." Mara leaned back in her chair, thinking. "The first thing we need to do is ensure your safety. Then we must prepare evidence carefully. We cannot accuse the Queen without proof that can stand in court. Do you have everything documented?" Leo handed her a small folder. Inside were his notes, photographs, and observations. He had recorded dates, times, and movements carefully, noting when money was sent and who handled the documents. Mara nodded approvingly. "This is very thorough. With this, we can build a strong case." Over the next few days, Leo met with Mara in secret. They studied the documents together and mapped out a plan. Mara explained the legal process, the risks, and the steps required to bring the case forward. Leo listened carefully. He had never imagined he would be part of something so important, but he also felt a deep sense of purpose. "Leo," Mara said one afternoon, "the court will not take this lightly. Bringing a case against the Queen is dangerous. There will be opposition, pressure, and attempts to discredit you. Are you sure you want to continue?" Leo looked out the window at the city below. He thought of the children in schools, the patients in hospitals, and the workers in the marketplace. "I am sure," he said quietly. "I cannot stay silent. If I do nothing, nothing will change." Mara smiled faintly. "Then we move forward carefully, step by step. First, we verify all the accounts, trace the money, and prepare a report that is clear and undeniable. Once we have that, we can present it to the proper authorities." Leo worked tirelessly. He continued his duties at the palace during the day, watching quietly and observing every movement. At night, he met with Mara in her office, reviewing every detail. They discovered that the money had been moved in small amounts to avoid detection, but the pattern was clear. Over time, billions had been redirected from public funds into private accounts. The deeper they investigated, the more shocking the truth became. Leo had always respected the Queen, but the evidence left no room for doubt. Mara guided him with calm wisdom, helping him focus on justice rather than anger or fear. One evening, Mara looked at him seriously. "Leo, this will be public soon. Once we file, everyone will know your name. Some will admire you, others will try to blame you. You must be ready for that." Leo nodded. He had thought about this many times. He understood that courage was not about being unafraid, but about standing firm even when fear was present. "I am ready," he said. The next step was to find a way to present the evidence to the court. Mara arranged meetings with trusted officials who could handle sensitive information. They made sure that everything was documented, recorded, and verified. Every number, every transaction, every receipt was double-checked. Leo knew that one mistake could ruin everything, but he trusted Mara and himself. Meanwhile, life at the palace continued as if nothing had changed. Queen Camilla held her meetings, greeted guests, and moved through the halls with elegance. Leo observed silently, noting her routines and the people around her. He remained calm, polite, and professional, hiding the storm that had begun in his mind. One morning, Leo was on his usual patrol when he noticed a new delivery being carried into the Queen's office. He remembered the documents and the secret accounts. He followed his instincts and made careful notes, recording every detail. He could see that the movement of money continued, though in smaller amounts. The palace was a place of order, but hidden beneath it were layers of secrecy that only a few could see. Leo returned to Mara and shared his observations. "Even now, the transfers continue," he said. "We must act soon before more money is moved." Mara nodded. "We are ready. We have enough evidence. Soon the court will hear the truth." As the day approached, Leo felt a mix of nervousness and determination. He had spent years protecting the palace and the Queen. Now he was preparing to challenge everything he had known. Yet in his heart he knew it was the right choice. The kingdom's people deserved honesty, transparency, and justice. In the quiet of the night, Leo walked through the palace gardens, thinking about the journey ahead. The moon reflected on the fountain, casting silver light across the marble paths. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also the strength of purpose. He had chosen the difficult path, but he knew it would lead to truth. Leo understood that courage was not just about facing enemies. Sometimes courage was about facing the truth, even when it meant challenging those you respected. He remembered why he had become a guard, to protect, to serve, and to stand for what was right. And now that duty had taken him beyond the palace walls, beyond his uniform, and into a new world of responsibility. He returned to his quarters that night with a calm mind. The storm was coming, but he was ready. He had Mara by his side, the evidence carefully prepared, and his resolve stronger than ever. The quiet guard of the palace was no longer silent. He was a protector of truth, a guardian for the people, and a witness to justice. Tomorrow, the first step would begin. The hidden truth would be revealed, and the kingdom would see courage in its purest form. Leo closed his eyes and thought of the future, not just of the palace, but of everyone who depended on honesty and fairness. The journey was only beginning, and he was ready to face whatever came. The morning sun shone brightly over the city, but inside the palace the atmosphere felt tense, though no one could see it. Leo walked through the grand halls with his usual steady pace, his uniform crisp and boots shining. He greeted the staff politely, his face calm, hiding the storm of thoughts inside. Today, he would take the first step toward revealing the truth. After completing his morning duties, Leo made his way to Mara's office. The small law office seemed calm, but both of them knew it would soon become the center of a storm. Mara was already there, reviewing the documents one last time. "Are you ready?" she asked. Her voice was calm but firm, showing the seriousness of the moment. Leo nodded. "I am. We cannot wait any longer. The people deserve the truth. The kingdom cannot suffer while this continues." Mara carefully organized the files. "We have verified every account, traced every transaction, and prepared a report. The next step is to present it to the proper authorities. They will review it, and then, if all goes well, the court will be informed." Leo's heart beat faster, but he stayed focused. He understood that fear was natural, but hesitation could cost the kingdom millions. He took a deep breath and thought about the people outside the palace, the children who needed schools, the patients who needed hospitals, and the workers who needed support. His determination strengthened. The first meeting was with Sir Nolan, a senior official known for his integrity. Mara and Leo arrived early, making sure the documents were safe and organized. Sir Nolan greeted them politely, gesturing for them to sit. "Leo, Mara," he said, "I understand you have serious information. Please explain everything calmly and clearly." Leo began by describing the discovery of the documents in the Queen's office. He explained how the money had been redirected from public funds into private accounts. He spoke of the receipts, the records, and the careful notes he had kept. Mara supported him, presenting the evidence in detail. Sir Nolan listened quietly, occasionally asking questions for clarification. He reviewed the documents carefully, noting the amounts, the dates, and the accounts. When Leo finished, there was a moment of silence. "This is serious," Sir Nolan said finally. "The evidence is clear and troubling. We must act carefully but decisively. You have done the right thing by bringing this forward." Leo felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Relief because the first official had believed him, and anxiety because the next steps would be even more challenging. Sir Nolan assured them that the case would be handled with utmost discretion, and that the court would be informed soon. Over the next few days, preparations for the court case began in secret. Mara worked tirelessly, organizing every piece of evidence, preparing legal arguments, and planning the presentation. Leo continued his duties at the palace, but every day he felt the tension building. He observed the Queen and her staff carefully, noting any unusual movements or changes in behavior. The Queen seemed unaware of the storm approaching. She held her meetings, greeted visitors, and moved through the halls with calm dignity. Leo watched silently, respecting her presence but feeling the weight of the truth he carried. One afternoon, Mara and Leo met to discuss strategy. "The court will be challenging," Mara said. "There will be opposition, attempts to discredit the evidence, and efforts to question your credibility. We must remain careful and focused." Leo nodded. "I understand. I am prepared. I will not let fear stop me. The kingdom needs honesty and justice." Mara smiled faintly. "Good. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act despite it. You have that strength, Leo." As the day of the first official hearing approached, Leo felt a mix of nerves and determination. He knew the public would be interested and the palace would notice changes in routine. Yet he stayed calm, remembering why he had started this journey. He was not doing this for fame or recognition. He was doing it to protect the kingdom and its people. Finally, the day arrived. Leo and Mara entered the courtroom early. The room was filled with officials, lawyers, and reporters waiting for the case to begin. Leo's presence in the uniform of a royal guard drew attention, but he remained composed. The court proceedings began with Mara presenting the evidence. She spoke clearly and logically, showing the patterns of money transfers, the hidden accounts, and the records Leo had meticulously kept. Leo stood beside her, ready to answer questions and confirm every detail. The opposition tried to challenge the evidence, questioning minor details and the method of collection. Mara countered each point with calm confidence, explaining the thorough verification process and the legal steps followed. Leo answered questions truthfully, showing that he had acted carefully and responsibly. As the evidence was presented, murmurs ran through the courtroom. People were shocked at the scale of the funds that had been moved. The patterns were undeniable. Even the officials who had doubted initially began to realize the seriousness of the case. Queen Camilla appeared in court later that day. She maintained a composed expression, though there was tension in her eyes. Leo observed her quietly, noting how she held herself with dignity despite the situation. He felt no anger, only a sense of responsibility to the truth. The judge reviewed the documents, listened to testimonies, and asked questions. Leo's calm and honest answers strengthened the case. Every detail matched, every record was verified, and the evidence left little room for doubt. After several hours of proceedings, the judge called for a brief recess. Leo stepped outside the courtroom, feeling the weight of what had begun. He knew the journey was far from over. The Queen's response, public opinion, and further legal steps would challenge him and Mara in ways he had not yet imagined. Mara approached him. "You have done well, Leo. The evidence is strong. But remember, the next steps are crucial. We must remain vigilant, patient, and composed." Leo nodded. He felt a quiet pride, but also understood the seriousness of the path ahead. He had taken the first step, but there were many more challenges to face before justice could be fully realized. As he walked back to the palace that evening, he noticed the people outside, the market sellers, children playing, and families walking home. He thought of how the truth he sought could improve their lives. The thought gave him strength. That night, Leo sat in his quarters reviewing the day's events. He thought about the courage it had taken to stand in court, to speak the truth, and to face potential consequences. He realized that true courage was not about avoiding fear, but about moving forward despite it. He also thought about the Queen. She was a human being, capable of mistakes and choices. Leo felt no personal hatred. His purpose was not revenge, but justice. He had sworn to serve the kingdom, and that oath guided him more than any fear or doubt. As sleep approached, Leo felt a sense of calm determination. The court had seen the evidence, the truth was beginning to unfold, and the kingdom would soon know what had been hidden. He was ready for the next steps, whatever they might bring. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Leo knew he had taken the bold decision to act. The quiet guard of the palace had become a voice for justice, and in that moment he understood that one person's courage could change the future of many. The journey was far from over, but the first step had been taken. Leo had faced fear, embraced responsibility, and stood firmly for what was right. The hidden truth was now no longer hidden. The kingdom's path toward justice had begun, and Leo was ready to guide it with courage, honesty, and dedication. The courtroom was filled with a tense energy as people took their seats. Reporters, citizens, and palace officials had gathered to witness a case that had captured the attention of the entire kingdom. Leo entered with Mara by his side. His uniform was crisp, his posture straight, and his eyes calm but focused. Every step he took drew quiet attention. He was no longer just a guard. He was a symbol of courage and honesty. Queen Camilla arrived shortly after. She walked gracefully, her expression calm but composed. Some whispers ran through the audience, but the Queen paid them no mind. She had held her position for years and was known for her elegance and poise. Yet Leo could sense a quiet tension beneath her composed exterior. He knew the truth he carried had the power to shake the foundations of the palace. The judge entered, and the courtroom fell silent. Every eye turned toward the proceedings. Mara stood confidently and began presenting the evidence. She explained how the money had been moved from public funds into hidden accounts over time. Each transaction was backed by receipts, records, and the careful notes Leo had maintained. Leo watched as the judge examined the documents. Every detail had been verified. Mara spoke clearly, showing the patterns in the financial transfers and highlighting the impact on schools, hospitals, and public services. The audience listened attentively, realizing the depth of the case. Questions were raised by the opposition, attempting to challenge the evidence. They asked about minor details, the method of collection, and the timing of the observations. Leo remained calm, answering each question truthfully. His careful preparation and honesty made it difficult to discredit his testimony. Mara supported him with clear explanations, reinforcing the validity of every claim. The Queen's lawyer tried to sway the court, speaking of tradition, loyalty, and the responsibility of handling finances privately. But the documents presented by Leo and Mara left little room for doubt. The audience could see the clarity and strength of the evidence. Even those who respected the Queen had to acknowledge the seriousness of the situation. As the courtroom drama unfolded, whispers grew louder. Citizens outside were already discussing the case, eager for news. The kingdom was watching closely, and every word spoken inside the courtroom would shape the public's perception. Leo felt the weight of responsibility, but he also knew that justice was on his side. During the proceedings, Mara called attention to the consistency in the records. Every sum of money redirected was documented carefully, showing a deliberate pattern. Leo had followed every rule, taken careful notes, and kept photographs of the documents. His actions were not reckless. They were precise and methodical. The judge asked questions directly to Leo. "You claim to have discovered these records in the Queen's office. How did you ensure they were authentic and complete?" Leo took a deep breath and replied, "I observed the documents over several weeks, recorded details carefully, and photographed each page. I also noted the dates and movements of the accounts. I ensured everything was verified before presenting it." The courtroom was silent for a moment. Leo's calm and clear explanation impressed both the judge and the audience. Mara added, "The evidence has been verified independently and shows a clear pattern of financial redirection. It is not based on assumption but on documented facts." The judge nodded thoughtfully. "The evidence appears thorough. We will continue with additional testimonies and expert reviews, but the clarity of these documents is undeniable." As the day progressed, Leo noticed the Queen observing him. Her eyes were steady, but there was a subtle tension in her expression. He felt no anger or fear. He only felt the responsibility to continue speaking the truth. The Queen had made choices, and now the kingdom had a chance to understand the impact of those choices. Outside the courtroom, the city was abuzz with news. Citizens discussed the case in markets, cafes, and schools. Children asked their parents questions, and teachers spoke carefully about honesty and responsibility. Leo knew that this was more than a case about money. It was a lesson for the entire kingdom. Mara and Leo continued presenting evidence throughout the day. Experts in accounting were called to testify, confirming the authenticity of the documents. They explained how the transfers were unusual and inconsistent with normal royal procedures. Each testimony strengthened the case and left the opposition struggling to respond. Leo remained composed, answering every question and providing clarifications when needed. He was no longer just a guard. He was a witness to truth, a voice for justice, and a symbol of courage for the people. His calm presence and honesty earned respect from officials, citizens, and even some who had doubted him initially. The Queen's lawyer continued to argue in her favor, emphasizing loyalty and service. Yet the evidence could not be ignored. Every detail, every number, every transaction pointed to a clear misuse of funds. The courtroom had become a place of revelation, where hidden truths were finally coming to light. As the day drew to a close, the judge called for a brief recess. Mara approached Leo, her expression serious but encouraging. "You have done exceptionally well. The evidence is strong and your testimony is clear. The next steps will be challenging, but we have established a firm foundation." Leo nodded. He felt a mixture of relief and determination. The first stage of revealing the truth was complete, but the final outcome was still uncertain. He knew the Queen and her supporters might resist, but he also knew that honesty and courage had already made an impact. That evening, Leo returned to his quarters in the palace. He walked through the quiet halls, reflecting on the day's events. The palace seemed different now, filled with a sense of anticipation. The hidden truth had begun to emerge, and the kingdom could no longer remain in ignorance. He thought of the citizens outside, the schools that needed funding, the hospitals that required support, and the workers striving for better lives. The money that had been hidden was meant for them. His actions were not just about exposing wrongdoing. They were about restoring fairness and hope. Leo prepared for the next day, knowing that the courtroom drama would continue. The Queen would respond, the lawyers would argue, and the public would watch closely. He felt the weight of responsibility but also the satisfaction of acting with integrity. Before sleep, Leo sat by the window, looking at the city lights below. The palace towers stood tall, and the gardens glowed softly in the moonlight. He understood that the journey was far from over. Courage was not a single act. It was a series of choices, each one leading toward truth and justice. Leo had taken the first bold steps. He had faced the Queen's power, the court's scrutiny, and the pressure of public attention. Yet he remained calm, focused, and determined. The hidden truth had been revealed in part, but the final resolution would require patience, wisdom, and continued courage. He closed his eyes, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The courtroom drama was only one part of the journey. The kingdom's reaction, the Queen's response, and the legal decisions would shape the path forward. Leo was ready to face it all with honesty, integrity, and unwavering dedication. In that quiet moment, he understood the power of one person's courage. A single guard, acting with responsibility and truth, could change the future of an entire kingdom. Leo had started as a quiet observer of the palace, but now he had become a guardian of justice, a witness to truth, and a hope for the people. The day had ended, but the story was far from finished. The hidden truth was no longer hidden. The kingdom was watching, and Leo, the young royal guard, was ready to continue the fight for justice and fairness. The mansion felt lighter than it ever had before. The silence that had once dominated the halls was replaced with soft laughter and quiet chatter. Mr. Riaz walked through the corridors, observing the small details he had never noticed. The sunlight caught the edges of the curtains, the soft sound of the fountain in the garden, and the little decorations that Mina had arranged with care. Everything seemed more alive, and Riaz felt a warmth he had not known in years. Amina had grown bolder over the weeks. She no longer hesitated to enter rooms, ask questions, or share her drawings with the staff. Her small, timid presence had transformed into a confident and curious personality. She spoke freely, asking about flowers in the garden, books in the library, and even the way the sun reflected on the mansion's marble floors. One morning, Riaz found Amina sitting near the window in the library, drawing a picture of the garden. She looked up when she saw him and smiled shyly. "Good morning, Amina," he said softly. "Good morning, sir," she replied. Her voice was calm, gentle, and confident now. Riaz knelt beside her to see the drawing. "This is beautiful," he said. "You have captured the fountain and the flowers perfectly. You see the little details that others might miss. That is special." Amina blushed and turned her page, showing another drawing. "I drew the birds this time," she said softly. "They sit on the trees every morning. I watch them when I come to the garden." Riaz smiled warmly. "You notice the small things, and that makes your drawings very real. It also shows how careful and observant you are. These are qualities that will help you in many ways in life." After a moment, Riaz suggested, "Would you like to help me with a project in the garden today? I think your careful hands and bright eyes would be very useful." Amina's eyes lit up. She had learned over the past weeks that spending time with Riaz was both fun and educational. She agreed eagerly and followed him outside. The garden was bathed in sunlight and the flowers were in full bloom. Birds chirped from the trees, and the fountain sparkled in the light. Riaz handed her a small watering can. "Let's water these flowers carefully. Each plant needs attention and we must be gentle." Amina nodded and began pouring water slowly, making sure every plant received enough. Riaz worked beside her, showing her how to check the soil, trim the leaves, and arrange the flowers. As they worked, he spoke gently. "Gardening is not just about plants, Amina," he said. "It teaches patience, care, and attention to detail. Just like these plants, we grow when someone takes the time to guide us and care for us." Amina listened closely, her small hands busy with the watering can. She thought about all the lessons she had learned from Riaz over the past weeks. She realized that even small actions, like watering a flower or drawing a picture, had value. She felt proud knowing that her efforts mattered. Mina came out to check on them, carrying a basket of fruits and water. She watched quietly as her daughter worked alongside Riaz. Her heart swelled with gratitude. She had worried so much about Amina's safety and happiness, and now she saw her daughter confident, learning, and enjoying herself. She realized that Riaz had given her daughter more than food or guidance. He had given her a sense of worth. After they finished watering and arranging the flowers, Riaz suggested a small picnic on the garden bench. They sat quietly, sharing fresh fruits and juice. Amina spoke about the stories she wanted to draw next and the adventures she imagined in her mind. Riaz listened carefully, asking questions, encouraging her creativity and praising her ideas. "You have a wonderful imagination, Amina," he said. "Your thoughts and ideas are valuable. Never be afraid to share them." Amina smiled, feeling a deep sense of happiness. For the first time in her life, she truly believed that her small actions, her thoughts, and her curiosity mattered. She realized that she could make a difference in the world around her, no matter how small she felt. As the sun began to set, Riaz stood and looked at the flowers they had nurtured together. "Amina, today you have helped me more than you know, not just with the garden, but with reminding me of what is important in life. Care, kindness, and attention to small details make life meaningful." Amina's eyes shone. She had learned that even small gestures could make a difference, and that trust and kindness were more important than wealth or rules. She looked at Riaz and said softly, "Thank you, sir. You have taught me so much, and I feel happy here." Riaz smiled warmly. "And I thank you, Amina. You have reminded me that life is richer when we care for others. Your small presence has changed this mansion, and it has changed me." That evening, as Amina returned to her room, she thought about the day. From hiding in the pantry to learning, drawing, and helping in the garden, her life had transformed. She felt safe, valued, and confident. She realized that she could always share her thoughts, ask questions, and be herself. Riaz, sitting in his office and looking out at the garden, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had wealth, power, and comfort, but he now understood that true happiness came from small acts of care, noticing others, and building trust. Amina had reminded him that life was about more than work and rules. It was about kindness, attention, and shared moments. Mina, watching her daughter grow and thrive, felt relief and joy. She realized that patience, care, and guidance could change lives. Her daughter was no longer timid and afraid. She was confident, curious, and happy. The mansion, once cold and silent, had become a home full of warmth, laughter, and love. In the following weeks, Riaz continued to spend time with Amina and Mina. They read together, worked in the garden, and shared simple meals. Each moment strengthened their bond, teaching lessons about care, trust, and the value of small actions. The mansion had become a place where everyone felt seen, valued, and respected. One afternoon, Amina asked, "Sir, do you think one person can change the life of another?" Riaz looked at her thoughtfully. "Yes, Amina. Even small actions, kind words, or simple gestures can change lives. You have changed mine in ways you cannot imagine." Amina smiled, understanding. She realized that she had grown in confidence and happiness because someone had noticed her, cared for her, and treated her with kindness. She felt grateful and proud. As the sun set, painting the sky with orange and pink, the mansion glowed with warmth. Laughter, curiosity, and small acts of care filled the rooms. Amina had grown into a confident and happy child. Riaz had discovered the true meaning of wealth and fulfillment. And Mina had found peace, knowing her daughter was safe and valued. The mansion was no longer just a home of riches and rules. It was a home of trust, care, and small joys. Every corner held memories of lessons learned, laughter shared, and bonds strengthened. That night, Amina lay in bed thinking about the journey she had experienced. From hiding in the pantry to learning and growing, she felt a sense of belonging she had never known. She smiled softly, knowing she was loved, valued, and safe. Riaz, looking out at the quiet garden, reflected on the changes that had come into his life. A small act of discovery, a child hiding to eat, had opened his eyes to the power of care, attention, and kindness. He had learned that wealth alone could never bring happiness. It was the small gestures, the trust, and the bonds we build that truly matter. From that day forward, the mansion was a home where kindness, curiosity, and care flourished. Amina continued to learn, grow, and explore. confident that her presence mattered. Riaz continued to guide, nurture, and notice the small details that brought happiness. Mina continued to support her daughter, grateful for the changes that had brought warmth and trust into their lives. Together, they had created a life richer than wealth, stronger than power, and more fulfilling than any luxury. They had built a home filled with trust, care, and joy, a home where every small act mattered, and where love and kindness would continue to grow. And in that home, with the gentle glow of the garden lights and the quiet warmth of shared moments, everyone knew that they were seen, valued, and loved. The mansion, once silent and cold, had become a place of life, learning, and endless possibilities.